Tell us, how positive is this easing of the rules of the quarantines in Hong Kong?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Well, the situation in Hong Kong is that the local infection rate has always been very low, so our domestic business had been pretty well maintained, and the recent easing relates to Hong Kong residents returning from overseas and that period of quarantine being reduced. But we're still waiting for Hong Kong to ease rules for overseas visitors to come, and obviously that is something we would like to see very much, provided the vaccination rate in Hong Kong can continue to increase.
But is this a start, especially for tourism to get going, to get started from people from overseas? I know that you're also bringing back and revamping the Peak Tram, and that's happening this weekend.
Yeah, not only for the Peak Tram, obviously for all of the hospitality sector in Hong Kong, the Peninsula Hong Kong, we all need overseas visitors. Now, for the Peak Tram, we're actually investing a lot of money to expand and upgrade the Peak Tram. So again, the return of international tourists is very important for that investment.
Clement, how are you preparing for the return of international visitors when it does come? Because, speaking to the likes of Airbnb, we've seen a real shift because of the quarantine restrictions to longer stays or more localized stays. Is that something that presents a challenge as you look to what the next phase looks like?
Well, I think the most important thing always is to maintain the quality of your experience. And throughout this pandemic, even though we've had to cut costs and manage our people, we've always maintained the quality of the experiences. And we believe that luxury market is still there. Actually, if you look at a hotel like the Peninsula Shanghai, where there's a large domestic luxury traveler market, things have pretty much returned to normal. So that's what we're looking for, hopefully to happen in Hong Kong and, other of our markets as well.
We've seen a broad approach to whether vaccinations are required for places of employment. Are you planning to have all of your employees vaccinated, given that hospitality tourism are really front line when it comes to exposure?
We've been really encouraging all of our staff to get vaccinated. In some of our operations, we're already over 90% vaccinated in places like Beijing and Shanghai. In Hong Kong, actually, there was some news that we were giving incentives to our employees. We were giving cash amounts for employees to be vaccinated in order to encourage and boost up that rate. But it's not just about cash. We've been giving our employees the opportunity to have medical checkups, and actually they get a day off in case they felt any, after effects from the shot.
Especially in Hong Kong, where the take-up has been pretty slow, will you ultimately make it a requirement? Is it too big a risk to have unvaccinated staff?
We prefer to make it persuasive rather than a requirement. And actually, we've seen in the past week or two a very good pickup, both amongst our own staff, but in Hong Kong generally. So we're pretty confident that our staff will get to above 70% very quickly, and I think the rest of Hong Kong is following as well. So we're quite optimistic about that. And as we said earlier, with that vaccination rate, hopefully our borders can open up and tourism can resume. It's a big industry for us here.
The requirement standards, will they differ depending on the region? Because here in the U.S., we're already seeing the likes of Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, for example, require mandatory vaccinations.
Well, I think it's up to the countries to establish some travel protocols whereby with vaccinations, then we have clear rules as to what traveling can be undertaken. And that applies to, Hong Kong as well. We need to have, there's been talk of travel bubbles between Hong Kong and different countries. Those have not really been established yet. And, for us in the travel industry, the most important thing is to have that protocol whereby people know on what basis they can travel.
Tell us a little bit about what's happening in your U.S. hotels, because you already fully reopened, right? What sort of traffic are you seeing there?
Yeah, the latest hotel to reopen was the Peninsula New York, which reopened on the 1st of June. And I have to say we've been pretty happy with the pickup that we've seen since then. I understand things are returning to normal pretty well. Our other two hotels are in Chicago and Beverly Hills. And actually, that pickup has been good as well. So I think the U.S. is a good example where once the vaccination rate gets to a certain level, then things can be relaxed and, business can return and head back more towards normal.
Are you feeling confident enough about the outlook to add more to your portfolio?
We're building 2 hotels at the moment. One is in London and the other is in Istanbul. In particular, the London project is a major, major investment. And, anyone sort of driving in London now will see it on Hyde Park Corner. So we're actually investing a lot of money for the future, and that commitment remains unchanged. We are working hard to open the hotels in London and Istanbul with that optimistic sort of future in mind.